We live in a world that's just obsessed with finding answers, right? Quick fixes, life hacks, instant solutions. But we're forgetting something really, really important. The real magic, the real engine of growth, isn't about finding the right answer, it's about asking the right question. So today, we're going to explore 5 questions that aren't designed for comfort. Nope, they're designed for confrontation.
The thing is, real meaningful change, you're not going to find that on the first page of a Google search. It's sparked by the kinds of questions that are a little bit audacious, maybe even uncomfortable, the ones that force you to just stop and think, really think.
So this really breaks it down for us. Look on one side. You've got our default mode, right? We're all seeking quick fixes, clear instructions, a little temporary comfort. But on the other side, that's the more powerful path. Asking deep questions that lead to, yeah, necessary confrontation, but also to genuine, lasting growth. It's the difference between slapping on a Band-Aid and actually healing the wound.
And this whole thing, this constant chase for easy solutions, we can call that the answer trap. It feels productive, for sure, but it's really just a cycle that stops us from developing any real intellectual or personal depth. It keeps us just skating on the surface of things, never actually breaking through the ice.
Look, if we truly want to grow, we've got to be willing to get a little uncomfortable. The highest form of reflection isn't about feeling cozy and validated. It's about confronting our own contradictions, our own nonsense, and pushing past those psychological barriers we've all built up. So how do we actually do that? Well, we start by looking inward. This first set of questions we're diving into is basically a personal audit. It's a tool to examine our own internal world with some radical, maybe even brutal honesty. No, really, just take a second here. What brings you that sense of true, deep, effortless calm? And the follow-up is the real kicker. Is your daily life, are your decisions actually optimized to get more of that? Or are they actively working against it? And here's why this question is such a game changer. It forces a really stark, harsh audit of what you say you value versus what you actually do. So often, it exposes how we trade our own inner calm for some kind of external approval. That next promotion, a few more likes on social media. The whole point here is to identify what gives you real resilience so you can start actively defending it from everything else.
All right, now for a question that might sting a little. What problem in your life, what roadblock that you keep hitting are you absolutely convinced is someone or something else's fault?
What this question does is it shatters the habit of just externalizing our problems. It's so easy to blame the economy or your boss or just bad luck. But this question forces you to look in the mirror. It helps you identify those self-limiting beliefs or habits that are the real thing holding you back. Okay, here's a big one. Imagine for a moment you could just strip away all the shoulds. Everything your parents, your job, your friends, and society expect from you. If all that was gone, who would you actually choose to be? See, this question puts a spotlight on the conflict that so many of us are living with every day, that huge gap between our prescribed path and our chosen one. It forces a head-on confrontation with your authentic self, the person buried underneath all those layers of expectation, so you can finally figure out what you truly want. But, this kind of thinking doesn't just apply to us as individuals. Let's zoom way out for a second and ask a question about all of us, about humanity as a collective. I mean, really think about it. As a species, we are incredible at making things faster, cheaper, more comfortable, more efficient. But to what end? Our entire global system is built around optimization, but we very rarely stop to ask, why? If you look beyond just mere survival and convenience, what is our shared purpose? What are we all actually working towards together? So asking this forces us to take this massive conceptual leap, right? It pushes us beyond thinking about just our own individual survival and asks us to consider our collective purpose. It's asking us to define what progress even means, not just in terms of tech or GDP, but in terms of human flourishing on a planetary scale. And this is not just some abstract philosophical thought experiment. This is urgent. With AI about to automate huge chunks of human labor, we have to ask what work is even for. As our technology gives us endless connection but often leaves us feeling more isolated, we have to define what true community looks like. And let's be honest, facing environmental collapse,
All our individual little optimizations are completely meaningless without a collective goal for survival. All right, so let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the lessons that come from a totally different place, not from quiet reflection, but from pure struggle, the wisdom that we gain from adversity. I want you to think back on the real challenges in your life, the setbacks, the heartbreaks, the failures. What is the single most profound lesson that came out of a moment you never, ever would have chosen for yourself? So often, the answer to that question reveals a core part of who you are today. And this brings us to this really fascinating idea called asymmetrical growth. It's the concept that the wisdom we get from unplanned setbacks and pain is often disproportionately greater than the struggle itself. The insight you gain isn't just an equal trade for the hardship, it can be an exponential return on an investment you never even wanted to make. So how do we actually do this? Well, you can turn it into a practice. It's basically a 3-step process of reframing. First, you have to identify the lesson that was forced on you. Step 2, you have to actively acknowledge that the experience, no matter how painful it was, holds some kind of seed of value. And then step 3, this is the crucial one, is to extract that truth. This isn't about pretending it didn't hurt, it's about changing the story you tell yourself about it. It's about transforming a scar into a source of strength. So what's the bottom line here? The big takeaway from all of this is that true growth, real growth, doesn't come from avoiding the hard stuff. It comes from leaning in, from embracing the confrontation that these deep questions bring to our doorstep. Ultimately, resilience isn't some trait you're born with. It's not about having an easy, struggle-free life. It's a skill, and it's a skill that's built by facing struggle head-on and having the courage to pull the essential wisdom out of it. So, I'll leave you with one final question. We all have one. That question that just kind of lives in the back of our minds, the one we know we need to ask ourselves, but we just keep pushing it away, keep avoiding it. What's yours?